Hi, namaste. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to another episode with Chef Akshay and me. And today we decided we'll do something exciting. We have been toying with the idea of doing something with fermented food and doing something with sardo.
Correct.
And hence we decided we'll do something with sardo today. So I'll let Chef explain what he's planned for us today.
Done. While we were thinking over the past few days, I said let's just pick up an ingredient, a normal one. So we picked up flour, and let's take you really quickly over the journey of a flour, how it kind of changes from a normal flour into a starter, like so, jumps up into either a leavened bread of many kinds. I have three kinds of breads to share today. This one's the meetha wala, a dessert bread that I made. I got a regular one, which is right here, and also unleavened, which I wanted to show. If you don't add anything, it becomes like a kachori.
Huh?
So just few basic ingredients, few basic techniques, and how easy it is to use the flavors which are already existing in your flour and just bringing them out. The whole idea is using those minimalistically. How do you play with flour and bring out the best in the flour? Use the best flour. Use a wide array of flours, and your bread and ingredients will change drastically. And that's what I've learned actually over the past few weeks that I've been baking, by just making small differences in the amount of salt, in the amount of sugar, the yeast, the air, the water is the same. But as soon as you change one component or the other, it just comes out really, really different. I'll give you a quick example of that right in front of you. So both these breads are made out of the same flours and the same ingredients, and this one is slightly higher in sugar, so it's dense, and this one is not. So it just affected the rise and how easy it is to play with flour. So why don't you begin with your journey of how you got into the whole thing,
Right,
and how it's going to be?
right, Chef. I
How
think
did you get into this whole thing of sardo that's been trending these days?
I think one can spend a full lifetime studying about yeast and fermentation, and just the fermentation in flour. There's so much to learn, and there's so much happening in that one little dough. I think I'll just
Yeah,
start by
correct.
telling everyone what a sourdough is and how you could start your own sourdough and go into making so many things with that.
Correct.
So a
Correct.
sourdough, by the name itself, is khatta atta. Simply, what we want to do is essentially capture yeast that is present all over in the world into a living organism that is made from maida and pani. So what I do is I take a glass jar, khali achar ka jar, and then I just wash it, rinse it completely. Maida 150 grams and 150 ml of water, and just give it a good stir. Leave it outside. I leave it on top of my fridge or on top of my oven, and you keep adding flour and water every day for the next 7 days. After every 2 days, what I do is I remove some of the top of that sourdough and I just add new, because I don't want the top
Correct.
to form any mold. So I remove the top layer and I get it in a fresh jar, clean it, and then I feed it more. So it's a
And
living.
this is amongst the most important steps. I'm sorry, I'm butting in, but this is amongst the most important steps. If you don't remove that and feed it, it's going to kill the whole,
Yeast.
and it's going to just change the flavor of the whole bread. Correct.
Right.
Go ahead.
So that's what I did for 7 days. I know it might seem like a long, tedious process, but it's very, very, very rewarding. And at the end of this 7 days, you can use this to make pancakes, se leke,
Name it anything: donut, pancake, bread,
yeah. So that was it.
anything.
I'm
True.
a simple sourdough chef, plain basic, and I've not done it for a while, so I wanted to just get it right again.
Okay.
I made the dough one day before I actually wanted to use it, because chef
Correct.
said that it's always better to give it a slow fermentation. I made the dough
Correct. You don't want very aggressive. you don't want very aggressive growth of yeast because the flour, the protein in India, the level of protein in India in the flour is a little low. So the gluten's not that effective. Plus, a slow rise is much better than a quick rise, and the flavors and the sweetness that is created in a slow rise is much different than what it is
It's very complex.
in an instant rise. So वही instant में और artisanal में यही फर्क है ना. That's it. It's all attention to detail. All small factors make a difference, and you picked it right. A slow rise will ensure that your flavor is much better.
Absolutely. It is a much more
And patience.
of flavor. So that's what I did. Apart from that, chef, I made a very simple tomato sauce. Now, unlike the Italians, I didn't want to peel it, and I didn't. I just got whatever tomatoes I had. I chucked them in
Okay.
a some salt, sugar, tezpatta, and I boiled it. I threw out all the water. I used it for another recipe, and then
Okay.
I blitzed it, and then I cooked with a little bit of garlic until most of the water has evaporated. All I wanted was a thick tomato paste, and then I made it into a chunky sauce in the.
So you concentrating the flavor of the tomatoes into the sauce.
Exactly.
Hey chef, do me a favor now.
Yeah.
Just let Aditi into the Zoom meeting, please. Thanks. There you go. Okay. Thank you.
And then, chef, I just got a few vegetables. I had to have basil because I love basil in a pizza, and some corn, mushroom, onion, capsicum, and that's it. Just the dough, that sauce, and this. So, would you want to tell us, chef, what you have prepared today?
Yes. So what I prepared today is, of course, the base of all our ingredients are starter. Slightly different because my approach is different. I created an unleavened bread in form of a masala kachori with the same flour, a mix of, and it's gluten free.
Wow.
And then I put the masala on top of the bread and made a focaccia
Wow. Chef,
out of the same.
Used?
Hanji?
What is the flour mix that you used? If it's not
The
atta?
flour mix for the focaccia is 2 parts of what do you call millets or ragi, a part of maida, and 2 parts of atta.
Okay.
So that's the ratio. And then out of the same, I've created kind of a rye roll, which I've eaten half of it, of course, and that's the thing left. And then I got the meetha bread, which has the whole ingredients are the same. All the ingredients are the same, and we added a ganache into it. So a dark chocolate ganache, and it just changed. It tastes like a black forest cake minus the cherries and the cream. So that's what it turns out to be. So this is what I've created, and yes, I'll take you through it after you do your pizza. You want to begin a pizza?
Yeah, shall we? I'll just put the pizza in the oven and then we'll carry forward. So I'll just
Correct. Done.
layer it. I'm just going to put one generous bit of sauce, and I'm not going to fuss about spreading it evenly. I just want all areas to have some sauce. Some places it might be more, some places it's less. Even while rolling, I did not bother too much. I just spread it with my hands like a good Italian uncle. And
You got to leave those pockets of air, yeah.
absolutely. I wanted to get those pockets of air. I didn't want to disturb them with the rolling. So I just used my fingers to evenly and just kept everything simple. I've not added much salt. I've not added oregano, anything. Because we're going to add those in the later stage. And
Correct.
Contrary to popular belief, हम लोग हद से ज़्यादा चीज़ खाते हैं, but pizzas are not meant to be like that. So I'm going to try and use not too much cheese. I'll first put the basil because I want the basil to get the water from the tomato sauce and not get burnt in the baking. And then I will put the vegetables, then I'll put the cheese and then the vegetables on top. Now I want them to get charred, but I don't want the cheese. So I'm using an Amul cheese today. So Amul cheese, when I bake it, it becomes very crumbly and crispy, and it's not the right melty kind of cheese that you know. Uh, so I'm going to first put the cheese and then put the vegetables so that the cheese also stays moist because it's in contact with the tomato sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And the cheese is also covering the basil and hence protecting it somewhat from excessive burning or charring during the baking.
Nice. It looks really yummy from here.
Just a little bit of cheese. I'm gonna worry a little bit about spreading my vegetables. I want them to look even at least if they're fully. And there's some mushrooms. I love mushrooms. And I mean, you can use any kind of mushrooms. You can go for jalapenos, olives, whatever you have. I'm just emptying
So,
out.
chef, are the mushrooms that you have raw or cooked?
No, it's raw, chef. Everything is raw. And
Everything's raw. Okay.
yeah, and I've got some baby corn right here. I'm gonna chuck that on. And that's it. I'm not going to worry much about it. I think it looks great.
Perfect. Looks yummy. Yeah.
I'm going to put it in the oven at the highest possible temperature. And, and what I do towards the end is I take it out of the oven and I put it on the gas directly so that the base gets nice and
the bottom gets nice and crispy.
Otherwise, there's another way. If you do not have an oven, what I've done here is I've taken a pan, a cake pan, and I've put the dough in it. I let it rise.
Oh, nice.
And then you can put this cake pan inside a pressure cooker with the bottom is covered with salt, and that acts as an oven, and it can give you an amazing pizza without the oven. So that's a tip if you don't have an oven. And pizza's in the oven, and I'm done. I can just sit back, and 10 minutes later.
That's really cool, yeah. The only idea I have after I saw and you were sprinkling the cheese is that the cheese, if you don't have access to cheese as you could these days, you could use hung curd, which makes excellent, gives you a very creamy texture up top.
Absolutely.
So yes, while your pizza is baking, I'm going to quickly take you through my journey because I think this whole thing is more like a journey than a recipe. So I soaked on day one. Now this is almost the original began about a month and a half at least ago, or close to 2 months. And because of this, to keep this alive and not throw away, I've been eating bread pretty much every day for the past month. I've been baking every day. Hence, I put it in. Basically, I stopped eating roti and I started to eat bread. So again, the recipe is the same, a mix of flours. I don't have a recipe for this because I keep adding the flour. I wish to make bread. If I feel like having bread rolls, then I put maida. If I feel like having whole wheat rolls, so I increase the percentage of the atta. If I feel like having a multigrainish roll, then I drop in a few millets. And the other secret that I have to share is if you put in cooked grains in it or millets, it gives you a creamier bread. I'm going to try and show you a few spots where you might be able to see. You see these small spots maybe in this bread. These spots are barley. I cooked the barley and I dropped it into the bread. What they do is that once you cook the barley, it absorbs the moisture, and then the moisture is slowly put inside the bread, and it just doesn't evaporate away. So you get a moister bread.
Wow.
So this is a technique I learned to incorporate because our ovens are really slow to bake in. So you need to have so they say that the longer the baking time, the higher the hydration of the bread. Because our ovens take anything up to like half an hour at least from a small loaf to up to an hour for a big loaf. And this is at 250 degrees. I bake at 250 degrees and nothing less because it doesn't give you a rest. So I try and put as much hydration as I can. And this is key in bread. So if you were to just use flour, oil, you would get a pancake or a kachori like this. This is also baked and not fried. So this has no yeast. So I want to show if you don't put anything, then you get flat bread. The same masala which you see over here was put on top of this focaccia, and again it gives you a nice different Indianized version of a focaccia. Again, the dough of the focaccia is slightly higher in hydration, a little bit more of maybe oil at the end because you want a crispy outside and a top. And I usually bake my focaccia in a glass bowl so I can see all the holes of the whole thing, right? So this is one thing that I learned. It's important to see how high it is and how your flours reacting. So you put it in a glass bowl and bake like this kind of thing. A rectangle one even better. It gives you a good idea of how the whole thing's behaving inside the mold, because if you put it in a mold, you can't see. And
Plus, glass is a much better conductor of heat and than a stainless
correct.
steel wood. So it must give a much.
And it's a better conductor, it spreads more evenly, and in case I think that I do not want a very crusty bread, then I bake it inside a bath of hot water. For the first half an hour, I make sure the pan has about half a centimeter of hot water. So if you do that, then you don't have a crust that forms on top.
Right.
But if you don't do that, then you will get a crust, and you can see those big holes that we all hope for. So this is again, in my opinion, a medium. It should be better, but if you spend more time and put it in the fridge overnight, your holes get bigger, and that's a sign that your yeast is interacting with the flour, and it's going to taste much better. And I'll post the recipe of the sweet black forest bread, as we named it. And it's really easy. It's plain bread with about 2 tablespoons of sugar per kilo of flour, and about 100 grams of dark chocolate ganache to be added in it, along with about a kilogram of flour. So again, you can get those ratios right. What the whole thing it brings out, it plays with the sweetness of the chocolate, and it's a really you should try it out, because if you were to think how would a sour flavor go with a sweet flavor in a very odd way, but it turns out to be really really nice.
Wow.
So you should try it out.
It is exciting, and I'm definitely going to try it out.
Correct. And I will post the details of how to bake all of this online. It's really tough to explain because ingredients are same across the board. We're just using flour and water in different ratios, only playing with percentages and ratios.
And time.
So I have more respect for bakers now after baking.
Absolutely. It's a very patient profession.
Correct. It's a patient.
But it,
So you want to have a look at the pizza that you pulled out, or you want?
this is the pan pizza that I'd made before. I'd allowed
Perfect.
dough to prove in it for a few minutes. I mean,
Uh-huh.
half an hour actually. And then
Okay.
once it was out of the oven, I put it on the oven top itself because that's quite hot. And I left it there
Yeah.
for a while so that I get a nice crust. I'm going to demold this quickly and then show you. So check that out. So that's what it
Very nice. The crust is really nice.
must look like. I'm going to
Very
put this
nice.
pizza up, and this is a beautiful thick pan crust pizza. You can use the same dough to spread it out thin, and then you get that amazing thin crust pizza as well. I'm going to cut it. Right here, sure.
Nice.
So it's
You
got a
can
nice
see
red.
the nice holes, and yeah,
So the second one
very nice.
is the one that is a little thinner. So it's a thin crust, but this one I wanted to do a nice deep dish, Chicago deep dish.
Ah, okay, Chicago deep dish, huh? So I just cut both the breads, and I wanted to show you the difference. The Black Forest bread is baked. This is the one. The Black Forest one is baked inside a bath of water,
No.
and it's slightly gooey and in texture.
Mhm.
This one's more crusty.
Yeah,
This one is a normal savory sourdough, and it's pretty interesting to see how dough behaves with very small changes. And over the next few weeks, we're going to play with a few different flours and grains. And yeah, we're going to take you through the ride of fermentation, and maybe next time even do a few toppings for the breads that we make. Because
absolutely.
the amount of bread we are making, we need to do something to put on top to eat.
Definitely, definitely. But I truly believe, Chef, sourdough is, I mean, when it comes out of the oven, that smell, that, that whole 7 days of wait after you get that first sourdough bread out of the
It's
oven,
worth it.
totally
It's
worth
worth
it.
it totally.
So everyone who's watching this, please take some maida and pani, put it right now over the next few days, feed it, keep it alive, treat it like your baby, and then we'll show you how to do amazing things with that.
Done. It sounds like a plan, chef. It's always good to be there with you. And I'll see you soon. Okay, chef. Bye bye. Have
Let's
fun.
catch up soon. Bye.
Enjoy the lockdown, yeah?
Full on. I'm enjoying it, Chef. Bye.
Bye.